Good morning to you out there. Well, it's quite something to be here and to be the first ever TEDxCheltenham speaker. And you might be wondering, what is an eye man, an optometrist, doing on stage talking about vision and learning? Well, I hope during the next few minutes you'll get some flavour of some of the things we do and get up to in the practice and how we can make a difference and how vision and learning are cleverly connected. So, let's just press on with that. We come into the world not being able to see anything. There's a blank slate. But do we realise that 85% of what we actually learn in our lives is through vision? And do you realise that if we look at your brain, 60% of your brain is linked to seeing? We start life as a little baby. Come into the world, the eyes work, but they've never seen anything before. We have a blank slate. We have a blank palette. We paint on that palette through early life. We learn, we see. We build a matrix, a wonderful panoply of experience as we start learning. We go from the blank slate to being able to appreciate an autumn day like today, a beautiful sunny autumn day. And we take it for granted that this just happens. We've all done it. You're all sitting here looking at me. You know I'm a speaker. You know the slides are here. But how do you get there? We just forget about it. These things that happen in those first early years of life that help us learn to learn, we just forget how we did it. So I want to take you on a journey. I want you to learn to see again. A picture. Just a medley of grey and black and white. But I wonder, can you see anything in that picture? Let me help you. Ah, you say, now we can see the cow. And I can promise you that you'll never not see that picture again when you see that on a stage or on a screen. You have learned something new today. But as adults, it's rare to do that, but we need to remember that that's what our children go through. This is a place of learning we're in today, and the children here have had to go through that process. They've had to learn how to see and how to use that information. But how do they do that? What processes do they use? Well, let's have a look at some of the processes needed for vision. The first and most basic thing we need to learn to do is know where we are. I'm standing on a stage. Gravity is holding me down. From the moment I was conceived, gravity is acting on me. And throughout my life, unless I happen to jump off a balloon 20 miles up in the air, as somebody did last weekend, well, then gravity's working on him. But if I was in the space station, it's not working. But apart from that, gravity is holding me here, and I learn to respond to that. All the processes that let me to go from being a helpless infant to being able to sit up and hold my head up, to being able to crawl, to be able to stand up and take those first precious steps. All those processes that lead me to be able to jump and run and move and know where I am in this world. Now I know where I am, but where are you? What is around me? How do I work out what is out there? I use my body movement, my head movement, my eye movement to range find and build a space map, a space world of the world around me. So I know where I am, I know where you are, but what are you? Now I'm going to use my experience, my memories, my working memory, my long-term memory, to put together an understanding of what's there, to look out and see something new and match it with past experience. But even that will not be complete without the final segment, the final sector of the visual process. Language. Because unless I can label something, unless I know what it is, unless I can match it to something from before and communicate that, then vision is a waste. It's not going to help me. And out of all of these things come the visual process, comes the vision. So, let's just think about that a little bit. The human eye. We all know from schoolboy biology, it's a bit like a camera. Light goes in, focused onto the retina at the back of the eye. That bit we all know. We all know that we have two eyes, and that the images come in, and there's that funny bit that everyone remembers, but the image gets turned upside down and back to front when it hits the retina. But what happens when it goes wrong? What happens when that system doesn't work? We need to team our eyes up. We need coordinated movements. We need to get a single, coherent, stable image. We need to do that to be able to process efficiently what we can see. But what happens when it's discoordinated? We get unstable, wobbly movements. It's uncomfortable. Children with discoordinated eye movements suffer headaches, eye strain, and a reluctance to learn. We have a piece of text there. Just straightforward text. But if your eye movements are unstable and you were trying to read that, this is what happens. Now, I defy you to sit down and read War and Peace when that's happening all the time, let alone Topsy and Tim or Spot Goes to School or anything like that. Unstable eye movements are a fundamental and well-recognised issue that affects children learning to read. But not only do we have two eyes, we need to get each eye to focus well. So we have a page here, rather appropriate, about education at Ofsted. Perfectly easy to see. But what happens if your focusing isn't working? We start reading with nice large text. That's easy. But what happens when the text gets smaller? It becomes harder to see. So children of 5 and 6 and 7 can start off their reading perfectly okay. But the 8, the 9, the 10-year-olds start to struggle. Okay, so we've used our two eyes. We've got the print clear. They're teamed up. But of course, we have to move around the page. We have to be able to scan and track and move coherently. And what we're seeing here are the eye movements of two readers, both 9-year-olds, both reading the same passage. The text on the right-hand side is of a good reader, an efficient reader. They're moving through their text smoothly, quickly, accurately, making a series of jump, saccadic movements. The child on the left, though, has a problem. His eye movements are not working well. I can promise you the child on the right here is going to be out in the playground kicking a football around long before the guy on the left has even got halfway through the passage. But in addition to that, the more movements you make, the more pieces of information you're acquiring. I liken reading to a jigsaw puzzle. Those with efficient eye movements have relatively few pieces to their puzzle. Those with the problems, as we see on the left here, they've got many more pieces. And I know I much prefer doing a 200-piece jigsaw puzzle than a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle. So eye movement problems, a big deal. An efficient visual system allows single, coordinated, and coherent acquisition of the world around us. And a breakdown in that leads to a range of physical symptoms and a reluctance to learn. As the screen says, there is a potential here for a wasted opportunity to learn and a wasted education. And it's so appropriate for this talk today, starts this conference in a school, the new All Saints Academy, which is won as a showpiece school for this country. Vision problems may be the commonest cause of educational underachievement in British schools today. We know that 1 in 10 children have a vision problem. What are we going to do about it? Well, just have a look at this slide for a moment before we look at what to do. This is a rather full and complicated slide, but the study was done a few years ago in Cheltenham, looking at children who'd been excluded from school because of bad behaviour. Behaviour was so bad they just couldn't be kept in a classroom anymore. At the time, there were 21 children attending a specialist unit. I got to see 19 of them and measure a range of visual skills. The slide shows names and some of the skills we measured. Never mind the detail, but the boxes in red are those skills which were abnormal, and blue, normal. And of the 19 children we saw, of the 20 children we saw out of the 21, 19 had significant vision problems. And I can tell you that one child sat in the study room and said, yeah, well, it does my head in, doesn't it, this reading lark? And I get angry, don't I? And I thump someone. He did. He knocked somebody out. The deputy head. End of school career. And in fact, that particular child has since been, I've seen his name periodically in our local newspaper, and actually nationally, for jumping out of a prison window dressed in his pyjamas, a police station window, dressed in his pyjamas one night. Some of you may even remember the story. But what if we can do something about it? What if we can put this right? These problems don't just affect reading. They affect handwriting, they affect spelling, they affect maths, they affect all the ways we learn. But what if? Piece of handwriting of a 7-year-old child before intervention. And on the right-hand side, the same child 3 weeks later. Can you see the difference? That child had a very simple, very basic binocular vision problem, but he could see. Like all the children in the study I did, they could all see 20/20, the bottom of an optician's letter chart. So nominally, they were okay. But this child had a tracking problem. And once we could stabilize that and improve it, you can see what happened. So, we need to join up the dots. We need to be able to bring these things together. We need to ask the question, do we really understand learning? We must break down the barriers that exist in this country. Science, education, health. They might as well be on different planets. They might as well be Scotland and England and get separated. We need to provide physical learning experiences for children. From a young age, they need to learn how to develop those skills. Sitting at a desk is not learning. They need to be out there in the world, getting mucky, climbing trees, finding out what it is to make a mud pie. This is all how we learn to see and how we learn to learn. And we need to recognise when it goes wrong. And above all, we need to know what to do and where the help is. And we need to provide that help to fix it. So, vision. It's cleverly and intimately connected to learning. The philosophy of TED is that a good idea is worth sharing. I've shared with you a good idea, but above that, we need to do a lot more with it. This idea needs to be shared. Thank you very much.